Hey guys, it's Sutonia here. Since there was quite a lot of good feedback on the battlecruiser changes video that I did, I think I'll do another one. This time it's a lot more focused on frigates in particular, and also some faction ships, especially overpowered faction ships. So let's dig in. So there's a few, most of these changes are kind of minor. Some of them are pretty significant though. So to start with, there's quite a few frigate changes in here, and I can talk to you in depth about those. So first of all, the Breacher, CCP considers it to be in a pretty decent place overall. I think that the Breacher is very competitive, and it's one of the best frigates in the game right now. They're improving the agility on it very slightly, and also giving it 5 meters per second base speed, so 6.25 meters per second with max skills. I don't think this is going to change very much, but I guess it's nice. Apparently, according to CCP, it's not being used very often, so which is kind of news to me actually, because I actually see quite a lot of them in factional warfare. You don't quite see that much of them in nullsec, even though it is incredibly strong. Overall, I guess it's just a good change. So Tormentor's just getting its drone bay doubled. Of course, the drone bandwidth is staying the same. So you can still only use 2 light drones, but you'll be able to carry a backup spare. And this is a theme I guess CCP are pushing for a lot of Armar ships now. So you'll be able to carry, like 2 warriors, 2 hobgoblins, or 2 acolytes, 2 hobgoblins, or 2 EC300s if you want to. Overall, I mean, the Tormentor's already a really strong ship. It just seems like they're just going for the theme thing here rather than trying to improve it or nerf it in any significant way. Okay, so on to the buffs of the Tech 1 frigates. Rifter and Slasher. Rifter's getting 5 CPU and 3 power grid, and the Slasher's getting 5 CPU and 2 power grid, and this is actually a really significant buff. There are a few people complaining about the Rifter and the Slasher and the Thread and how they're not getting big buffs, but I actually think this is a pretty significant buff. I actually have some fits in Python ready to show you. So on the Slasher fit, it's always been really hard to fit the Slasher with a utility high and also like a decent tank module. So this is a fit that I actually have pre-fit for you. And you can see here it's actually 1 CPU over and 1.45 grid over. So this will actually fit after the patch, which is really interesting. There's also some other fits that you can do with dual prop and also with the CPU buff. You might actually be able to do mic warp drive with an ancillary rep as well if you drop this gyro stabilizer and then turn this into ancillary medium ancillary shield booster. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a pretty significant buff to the Slasher. If you're not running the utility high, you can upgrade all of these to the highest tier autocannons as well. I really like this fit as well because it's actually cap stable while running the Newt and running them with the microdrive off. Obviously, once you've settled into orbit with your Scram and Web, it's actually 30% cap stable, so you can perma run this Newt. It's actually really powerful. And you could do these Slasher fits before. There's actually a few fits like this in factional warfare, but they only really fit with Afterburner. But with the buff to fittings, this will actually fit now. So I'm actually going to be looking forward to flying a Slasher fit like this after the patch. And for Rifter as well, it was really hard to sort of fit the utility higher while having a competitive fit. So for example, this is a fit that I use. It's very similar to the Rifter fit I used in my video. This doesn't actually fit due to CPU. It will fit if you fit an internal force field array, but fitting a 9 million is damage control on the Rifter is not something you really want to do. But after the patch, because of the extra 5 CPU, you will be able to just fit a cheapo, standard 1 million ISK damage control here, and it will still fit with the extra CPU. Also on the Rifter, because of the extra grid, it will also make artillery fits possible. So for example, this is an artillery fit Rifter. Previously wouldn't fit because it's 2.61 grid over and some CPU over, but you actually be able to do a decent kiting Rifter fit now. And also, if you want to spend a bit more money on it, you can upgrade it a bit if you're willing to spend a Tech 2 power grid module and then roll some T2 ambits. Well, actually just one Tech 1 ambit. You can actually get a pretty decent fit on this Rifter. As you can see, 22 kilometer fall off with 7.5 kilometer optimal. That's pretty good, especially as you can kite with it. It isn't that strong, but it's kind of just like a Condor really, and that's actually pretty significant. And again, on shield buffer fit, this one actually was not possible before the Carnix expansion. Is possible now, but it's like super max. You need like rigging 5 and shield upgrades 5, and you don't quite need advanced weapon upgrades 5, but it's close. It's really hard to fit. But now with the buffs, if you have lower SP, you actually be able to fit this shield rifter, which is actually pretty strong as well, with the small new and then the Tech 2 medium shield extender. It's actually pretty strong, and it will actually be possible after the patch. So I actually think these fitting buffs are pretty significant. I think the people who are whining about the rifter in the thread, in this forum thread, have not sort of thought about the impact that these fitting buffs are going to have on the rifter and slasher, because they will actually be considerably stronger. Tristan getting a nerf. It is the most powerful frigate in the game. I remember reading somewhere in Slack that the Tristan was the most used ship in PvP by over 3 times more than the next frigate down. And I'm actually quite surprised that the Tristan is not actually getting nerfed a bit more. It's still, as they say, it's still the top dog of T1 frigates, and they probably expect it to be still the top frigate. It is going to be dropping down in speed by 10 ms base speed. That means that with max skills, it's going to be dropping by 12.5 meters a second base speed. And for example, if we just go to Tristan, right now it goes just over 3 kilometers a second. I already did the maths on it, and this is going to be the speed after the change. It'll go 2,954 instead of 3,048. So, a bit of a speed nerf. That will help it get slingshotted a bit more with kiting fits. Doesn't really address the problem that Tristan has just a lot of effective hit points when in a kiting fit, and a lot of attack frigates actually lose to it at 0, even if they catch the kiting Tristan at 0. So, I still think the Tristan is going to be one of the most powerful frigates in the game, and it's probably still going to be used as much as it is. So here comes the big one, and for some it's a bit of a disappointment. I kind of understand where CCP Fozzy is coming from though. So CCP are changing the Punisher. A lot of people, I think Gorski Car on CrossingZebras.com posted, I've talked about it being a rocket ship as well. I think a lot of people talked about how it would be cool as a rocket ship, but they don't want to change it to a rocket ship because they don't think they have the solid support across the whole Tech 1 lineup for missile focused skill plan. So for example, there's no dedicated missile destroyer from R, there's no missile cruiser, there's no dedicated missile battle cruiser, there's no dedicated missile battleship, which is one of the reasons why they're not going to be changing this to a rocket Punisher or a missile Punisher. For that reason, and even though there is a lot of Tech 2 candid ships that do use missiles. So a few people disagree with this point of view. I kind of understand where CCP Fozzy is coming from in that regard though. But let's talk about the buffs of the Punisher. So they're completely removing the 5% damage bonus, and they're replacing it with 10% laser cut per level, but they're adding a turret to it, and they're also adding a low slot, which is quite interesting. And then they're adding the fittings required to fit I think it's one of their highest tier beams. 10 power grid, 13 CPU, which is a bit stronger. Once you take the fitting skills into account, it's 25% more than that. So 12.5 power grid and 16 CPU. So I still think the Punisher is going to be garbage, and it's because it only has 2 mids, it has no control. Even though it's getting the turret, it's going up to 4 effective turrets instead of 3.75 because of the loss of the gun bonus. It's still going to struggle with cap, I think. I think the Tormentor can get away with it because essentially it now has the identical bonuses to the Tormentor, except for instead of damage it has the armor resistance bonus, but of course it has the extra gun that means overall it will do more damage than the Tormentor. Well, actually the Tormentor will still do more damage than it because the 2 drones are going to make up for the I think it's about 6% more DPS than it does over the Tormentor with turrets. However, it still has the same problems with 2 mid slots, so has no control. Again, what I was going into is the Tormentor can kind of get away with the weakness to energy neutralizers because it has the defensive web. In the case of scram kiting, it can keep afterburner scram, injector fits away from it, where a new Tristan that has AB scram injector can just get on top of the Punisher, whereas with the Tormentor, beam Tormentor, it can kite out with the defensive web, it can stop it from getting into energy nuke range. The Punisher is not as fortunate as that. It's still not going to be able to stop, Merlin and Incursus just getting on top of it with blaster DPS, and ships with tracking bonuses like or just autocannons and blasters can take advantage of the fact that it doesn't have a tracking bonus and no control. So ships like the Atron, the Slasher will be able to just orbit it at 500 and mitigate all the DPS from it. And it has no way to hold anyone there. Without the web, anything can run from it. So it's going to be pretty garbage for 1v1s, I think. I mean, some people might try and kite with it. One funny thing is that the best fit for this might actually use autocannons now, because it doesn't actually have an energy turret, but damage bonus. You can just fit like 4 autocannons to it, then 2 400mm plates. I mean, the extra low salt will help a bit, maybe. But remember that the extra power grid and the extra CPU is kind of going into the extra turret. But if you're fitting like low tier turrets or like autocannons, you can maybe upgrade the tank on it a bit. It will probably become sort of like the, I guess, bait ship of choice. The Tormentor was kind of a better bait than the Punisher, because it had the third web and the 2 drones. So it had the third mid for the web. So I don't particularly think the Punisher is going to be that strong in 1v1s. CCP acknowledged this. They say it's still going to be, kind of a... It's not going... They don't expect it to be a dominant sort of powerhouse, but they do expect it to be very useful for new players in PvE, and also it could become, pretty strong in fleets as well with the fight of lows and the extra damage. So, I think it's not quite the change that people were hoping for the Punisher, but I guess it's kind of nice that they did something about it. So, moving on to faction ships now. Firetail and Hookbill. I'm really excited about the Hookbill change. So the Firetail its tracking bonus is going from 7.5% per level to 10% per level. That's the same as on the Stabber Fleet issue and the Fleet Hurricane. It's kind of like this faction limiter tracking bonus that they've got going on now. I don't think that's going to change the Firetail too much. I mean, artillery Firetail never had a problem with tracking anyway because it had dual webs. It might be nice on some brawl autocannon fits, getting the extra tracking. Might be able to track a few more drones, or with a single web it might allow you to track a few faster ships and some linked ships, maybe like linked Dramiels or something like that. But overall it's nice. I still think the problem with the balance on the Navy faction level is the Galanti Federation Navy Comet is still a bit too strong. Ever since the Horrigs were introduced to the game, I think it just sort of went up from the strong part to borderline overpowered, and that's where it is currently. I don't think that tracking bonus is going to help the Firetail catch up to the Comet. I think it's probably going to stay in the same place, but it's just a nice bonus. So the Hookbill bonus is actually changes very interesting. So they're changing the damage bonus from 20% kinetic, 10% EM thermal explosive to 25% kinetic, 20% EM thermal explosive. So this is quite significant. So basically, before the patch, it'll do the same damage with... after the patch, it'll do the same damage with EM thermal explosive as it does with kinetic now. And with kinetic, it'll be doing 12.5% more damage after the patch than now. Previously it had 6 effective launchers with kinetic, now it have 6.75 effective launchers. Just for reference, the Gamma also has 6.75 effective launchers with everything, so now the Hookbill will actually do the same damage as the Gamma with kinetic only, and the EM thermal explosive damage will be boosted up to 6 effective turrets. 6 effective launchers, which is actually really good. Really looking forward to this Hookbill change. Make it a lot more versatile, especially in FW. Sometimes you can't shoot kinetic against assault frigates, like the NU and the Harpy, and it kind of sucks, swapping to EM and barely doing less damage than a Kestrel. So it's a very good change in my opinion. Speaking of the Hookbill, they're kind of doing the same thing to the Navy Osprey, which is actually going to become very unique and very cool, I think. So what they're doing is They're actually giving it the same damage bonus as the Hookbill, the new Hookbill now. Also have 25% kinetic, 20% EM thermal explosive. Bear in mind that it only used to have 10% kinetic and 5% EM thermal explosive, so it's going up. The bonus is going up quite a lot. They're taking away one of the launchers from it though, but that's cool. It's still going to do a lot more damage than it did before the patch. It'll actually do the same damage that it used to do kinetic before the patch with EM thermal explosive, and the kinetic bonus will actually go up, which is really cool. So they're not changing the high slots on it at all, so it actually have 2 utility highs, and on top of that they're giving it an extra 100 grid. Bear in mind this extra 100 grid is a lot more significant than it sounds, because they're also removing one launcher from it. So not only are you getting the 100 grid, but you're also getting the extra fittings from not fitting that extra launcher. So, and they're also boosting the drone bay. Right now the Osprey Navy issue can only use 2 light drones. After the patch you'll have a full flight of light drones. So the Navy Osprey will be getting a lot stronger. It's really unique because it's the only cruiser in the game, and actually I believe the only missile ship below a battle cruiser. Of course the Cyclone and can do has 2 utility highs, and also the Bargas and the Titan fleet issue. But it'd be the only missile ship below a battle cruiser in the game, only missile cruiser, unless you count like really weird tech-free cruiser subsystem layouts. That has 2 utility highs. That's actually really cool. So I think the Navy Osprey will actually be really good for PvP. You can have like 2 newts on there, especially with rapid lights. You know, 2, and because another thing about the 2 utility highs as well. I don't want to go on about it too long, but the Cerberus, Caracal Navy issue don't have utility highs at all. So that puts it in quite a different spot, and it could actually be really nice for exploration as well. Like I said, in PvP, you know, being able to fit newts or NOS is really cool. Also, having like a scan probe for wormhole space, you could have like a scan probe launcher and a cloak on there, or scan probe launcher and a newt. And you know, if you're a new player in PvE, trying to do exploration in low sec, for example, you could fit a cloak and a scan probe launcher on there, and still have like the full fit. So I think it'd be really cool for PvE and for PvP. Certainly be a lot better than it is now. Sacrilege, very minor buff. It's basically getting its drone bay doubled, but they're not changing the bandwidth, so it's actually going to be able to carry a lot more backups. So onto the cancer nerfs. Oh, actually I shouldn't use that word anymore because I've been told not to use it because it's offensive. But the overpowered ships are getting taken down. So Worm and the Healer are pretty much the most significant nerf here is to the Worm and the Healer in this set. There is one more nerf, of course, the Orthus, which I think you'll all be happy about. But the Worm and the Healer are both losing 1 low slot, and they're losing 20 CPU as well, which is basically what that low slot took out. To put this into a bit more context for you, I've got this in Python right now. So as you can see, this is sort of the current Worm right now. Has 11,000 effective hit points, and it does 225 DPS with hobgoblins plus an extra almost 40 DPS with light missiles. If you were to lose 1 low slot, for example, if we take out this DDA, you can see it drops down to 191 drone DPS from 225. So it works out to be about a 15% damage nerf if you lose the drone damage amplifier. If you decide to keep the drone damage amplifier and trade a damage control instead, you'll see here that it drops down from 11,000 to just over 9,000 effective hit points. So your choice, 2,000 effective hit point nerf or 15% DPS nerf, seems pretty fair to me. The Worm was probably the most overpowered frigate in the game, and you know, I don't think the Gamma is actually that bad. I know there are a few people crying that the Gamma didn't get nerfed. I think the Gamma is actually pretty fair. You know, at least the Gamma dies to an Atron at 0, for example, whereas a Worm kills like most Navy brawling frigates at 0. So it's a pretty significant difference, especially, you know, this Worm is in a kiting fit and it still has more effective hit points and DPS than most like brawling ships. Like even a Federation Navy Comet will actually die to this Worm fit at 0, which is pretty ridiculous. So I'm glad to see it get nerfed. It's still going to be really strong though. I mean, also one of the reasons why CCP is taking away 1 slot from these ships is because all drone ships of all sizes have one less slot, but the Garustas lineup was Deption. They had the same amount of slots as all the other pirate ships. So they're taking away one slot from the Healer and the Worm. They're actually leaving the Rattlesnake untouched, and for that reason, they say that it's not used as much, and they don't see it as a big of a problem. So the Rattlesnakes, they're leaving the Rattlesnake alone for now, but they won't rule it out of future changes. So the Rattlesnake could potentially get nerfed in the future, but it's more of a PvE ship than a PvP ship right now. Even though again it is really strong in PvP, but it's just not as dominant as the Worm and the Healer were. So the Healer and the Worm losing 15% DPS. So I didn't do the maths on the Healer, but the Worm is losing 2k EHP if you drop the damage control. So it seems pretty fair to me. This is another nerf. A lot of people are unhappy about this nerf too, but because they didn't nerf it enough. So the Orthus is its damage bonus is being changed from 20% per level to 15% per level. So they're nerfing the damage per level by 5%. Overall, this is a 12.5% DPS nerf, because the Orthus will go from 10 effective launchers to 8.75 effective launchers. Just to do some maths for you again, I have an Orthus up here in Python. You can see here that currently the Orthus, I've got 3 BCUs, and I've just got 5 Tech 2 rapid lights, and then I've got Kadari Navy ammo loaded. As you can see right now, the Orthus does nearly 2k damage per volley. Times 20, that's 40k EXP of damage, not including drones, before reload, and that was huge. That is just disgusting. Like, the Orthus can kill most buffer fit hacks and cruisers before reloading. That's the big problem with the Orthus. So, if before it has 503 DPS, we can missile DPS. This is with 3 Tech 2 BCUs, obviously you can use Faction 2. You can also change you can also use Fury missiles, of course, as well. But just to show you, like, this Orthus fit with 3 BCUs and Faction missiles with Tech 2 rapid lights will be going down from 500 DPS to 440. Seems pretty fair to me. Overall, it'll go down from 589 DPS to 520. That's with Faction missiles. With Fury as well, if we just change these missiles out. Yeah, before with Fury it did 614 DPS. 700 DPS total. This is cold, of course. You can do more by heating. That 614 will be dropping down to 537. So, seems pretty reasonable to me. The Orthus is probably going to get nerfed again in the future. They do say that that this nerf is relatively mild compared to the Orthus's strength, but they say that they're pretty comfortable moving incrementally. I think what this means is that the Orthus is going to get the same treatment as the Ishtar, where instead of just nerfing it in one patch altogether, they're going to, nerf it, wait 3 months, nerf it, wait 3 months, nerf it, wait 3 months, nerf it, and then hopefully it's fine. That's probably what's going to happen. So, I guess a weird buff here as well is the Bargas. The Bargas is actually getting buffed up. It's going to have 9 effective launchers and 8.75. Basically, what they're doing is they are removing one launcher and giving it a second utility high. Then they're just doubling the damage bonus to 10% per level. So the damage buff is relatively minor, but the big thing here is the second utility high, which will be really strong. You can definitely check out like Big Micah's video to see how strong the Bargas really is. Big Micah is like a solo PvPer who does a lot of things with like links and stuff like that. But the Bargas was already strong. I think it was pretty underestimated. But I think it's mostly because out of the Orthus, and I don't think the Garment is as overpowered as people think it is. But I think it's probably the ship that was the more balanced one out of the 3. So you don't see it being abused as often. I still think the Bargas is super strong, and the double utility highs it will actually share the same as the sort of Typhoon fleet issue. So yeah, pretty good. These changes are pretty good. CCP definitely works on looking at feedback, especially as they say in here that some of these ideas were taken from me myself. So CCP, definitely look at your feedback. I think all of these changes are pretty good. It's going to be it is pretty nice seeing the few Orthus tiers in the thread, especially because the only post by Orthus people complaining about the nerf don't know how to do maths. So yeah, I'll see you again soon.